Welcome back to CHIROTHON, Michigan with our fantastic Michiganders. Now, I'll tell you what, this has been an exciting day. From the very beginning of this day, we knew that you would support us, we would be able to elevate, and we'd be able to celebrate, and celebrate we will. I have a very special update for you and a wonderful guest that I know you're absolutely going to love. Right now, I get to tell you the update. We are now at $12,076 raised, which is a moment in time for all of us to reflect on how are we going to get that first line approach so that September Drug-Free Pain Management Awareness Campaign and people that are suffering are going to be able to really know there are other options than pain medication or surgery. And that's why CHIROTHON is here. It's here for you. Do you want to optimize your living? Do you want to optimize your health? Well, join me for this next guest, because I will tell you what, this next guest depended on his chiropractic care and his nutrition. And it's so important for us to be able to showcase what that really means and why chiropractic is such an influential part, not just when you're in pain, but when you want to gain mobility, gain stability, increase your agility. Well, let me tell you this, lifestyle is one of the reasons chiropractors are chiropractors. We want to have the best quality of life. And this special guest is brought to you by our very special sponsor, which is Standard Process. So with Standard Process, I want to share with you who they are and why they're sponsoring this segment. Standard Process was actually founded in 1929. The fellow that started it was a very interesting individual and really saw the future and what it meant to be healthy. His name is Dr. Royal Lee. He was committed to advancing health at that time and knew that it was through whole food nutrition that this could be achieved. So multi-generations go by, and at this point now we have it being run by a friend and someone who is very special to this profession. He is the CEO and president of Standard Process. It's Mr. Charlie Dubois, and we can't thank him enough for being able to bring this speaker to us and merely fill out Dr. Lee's mission. Why Standard Process? Because they're looking at health in a holistic approach and how they farm, how they manufacture, and how they protect the quality of what goes in your mouth. Every product they give to you and your family has an intentional, maximized quality in it. They're one of the few supplement companies that actually grow their own materials. That's right, they grow their own materials. That's how much they care about the quality that goes into the products that they sell. So they're not only organically there, they're actually sustainably there with you. So I want to thank Standard Process for sponsoring our next speaker, and he is a fabulous guest. Who is he? Well, before I say who he is, this speaker holds the Kayaking Guinness Book of World Record. He holds that record for something very special, and his name is Cyril Derreumaux. He considers himself a citizen of the world, fluent in 6 languages. Cyril is attracted to learning and discovering new cultures and places all the time, anytime. The natural curiosity of people is what kind of inspires him, and the places, oh, Cyril will go. So he went backpacking around Europe to kind of find out what's going on. Then it became the world. And at 25 years old, he had that 1-year trip that backpacking around the world was. How fortunate. And it inspired his next piece. And that piece really is, what can you do with $7,000 in your pocket? And it's the can-do attitude that Cyril comes out with. It's life-changing, and it's part of the chiropractic philosophy is get out there, get active, and live the life you want to live as best as you can live it. Always a dreamer. Cyril then found himself seeking his next expedition. You're asking what that is? Well, it was inspired by the stories of maverick ocean explorers. Cyril began his biggest expedition to date And that, my friends, is crossing the mid-Pacific on a kayak, solely human-powered. Yes, I said solely human-powered. He left California to Hawaii, reaching Hawaii to become the very first 100% human-powered kayaker. Can you imagine going that far? He accomplished this and quite an amazing feat and became the member of the famed Explorer Club. Cyril continues to dream big, and oh, he is dreaming big, and you will learn more about that when you listen to his adventure, a very, very big adventure it is, and advocating he does to live life, literally live life to the fullest. Cyril now hopes his adventures inspire others to find their own dream. Will you find your dream? Will you help others find their dream? If you go to f4cp.org/CHIROTHON, f4cp.org/Mac, you in fact inspire other people to live their fullest life. Well, it's this time that I want to bring on our guest and talk to him about his adventures.
We are so delighted to have you at CHIROTHON MAC.
So happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
So what's so impressive about all of the things that I just listed off there is it had to start somewhere. So Cyril, I want you to go back almost till you were 5 years old. Was this even a thought in your head that this could be possible? And then walk us through, how did you even come up with a journey? Because it just like literally blows my mind that you could think of manually powering yourself from California to Hawaii.
Yeah, this is surreal. Sorry, no pun intended. But I only started kayaking when I was 32. I never kayaked before, and I'm 40.
Wow.
So it took me from the moment I first sat on a kayak to the moment I decided to cross on a solo expedition for 3 months, only 10 years. So what I would define is I'm an eternal beginner. I love to start new things, and kayaking was the thing I did when I moved to California. Their friend invited me to this outrigger canoe and said, "Hey, do you want to join in the boat?" "For sure, let's do this." And I loved it. So little by little, I started to have a bigger adventure, longer race, new challenge, new country. And just little by little, I just finished doing this.
It's pretty impressive because, when you think about how much work and manpower and mental preparation goes into doing something of this nature, you often hear of the little boy who has a little boat on his dresser and thinks one day I'm going to do this. So you've inspired me because, so you said you started this in your 30s and then you did it in your 40s. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I started kayaking, I was 32. And I decided to start on that adventure. I was 42, 10 years later. And
That's awesome.
It took me 4 years to make it happen because I had to create a boat. I had to build it. So let me give you just perspective. You talked about my ocean crossing in a rowing boat. So a rowing boat, you use oars, you go backward. And I did the first crossing in 2016 in 39 days. Now, there's about 800 crossing in rowing boats in the history of ocean crossing, right? In kayak, it's a completely different beast. There's been only 4 people. So, and the reason is the boat is much smaller. You're using kayak paddles, not oars. You're much closer to the water. I can touch the water on both sides with both hands at the same time, right? So the cabin is much smaller. It's just a different beast. And how can you be 3 months with not walking, not seeing a human being? So yeah, the level is so much higher. And I don't know what happened in my mind, but I was passionate about trying to do that myself.
I think it's epic. Okay. And what really did it for me is so many of us out there listening with your journey and your adventure, which is really quite, honestly, it's very impressive, is that you didn't start out as many of us give up dreams saying, oh, we probably should have started when we were like 12 and then we could jump into this dream. But you just jumped into it and you chose the kayak, which you're right. There's very few people that ever, have the capability to be able to do a charter the waters with a kayak like that, but there's a piece of this, not only that it is you did it once with others, but then to do it by yourself. So did you choose that same route from California to Hawaii because you had done it in 2016, or was there something more about it that you thought, this is something I want to do by myself?
Right. So before I answer that question, let me go back a quick second. When you see a 25-year-old who's been playing the guitar for 10 years, right? He started at 15, he's 25, he's playing so good. And you're 45 and 50, and he's like, I can't play like him. Like, he's been playing for 10 years. Well, if you start at 50, at 60 years old, you'll have played guitar for 10 years. So for me, I love to push people to start things. It doesn't matter how old you are. You want to paint? You're 40, paint. You want to take pictures of butterflies? Take pictures of butterflies. In 10 years, you'll be the best photographer of butterflies around the world, right? So I'm pushing now to your question. It's just because I live here, I live in San Francisco, near San Francisco, and I did the first crossing, Monterey to Hawaii. It's not the easiest crossing. It's actually one of the hardest, because if you leave the continental shelf of a main continent going to an island, you have all those currents and swell and wind pushing you south, so actually pushing me towards Mexico. But I just happen to be here. So yeah, I could do the Atlantic. Actually, we'll talk about it later because I want to do it now. But it would add another cost. At the beginning, you have to finance the boat, you have to finance the preparation, finance 3 months. You're not going to be, working. So just the easiest is take off from just here. Plus, if I have the boat, I can train in the right condition. And it just made sense for me to try to take off from here.
Well, there is a lot of preparation involved, not just financially, but mentally and physically for such a big adventure. And it becomes one of those moments in your life where you can't experience the experience until you actually are in that position, especially in a kayak, much different than a rowboat. And start with, for us, how did you physically prepare for this moment to launch out of the Bay Area and then start heading on your way? What were some of your training regimens?
So first thing first, I had to assess where I was. So I went to see a specific guy who said, okay, we're going to do a VO2 max to see where you are. And we're going to look at your lactic acid buildup. So he, takes a drop of blood from my earlobe and does that for like 20 minutes. It's an effort. You're on the bike and pushing as hard as you can. And at the end, the guy said, well, Cyril, you're not very fit. You're not a sprinter, you're not a marathoner. You're just in between. So I'm going to give you a protocol. And that's what I followed. I need to do long hours. At a heart rate of about 140 beat per minute, right? And the idea is to train your body to be a very well-oiled machine to recycle the lactic acid that you build in your muscle. And although I'll be kayaking, I wanted not only to do just kayaking in my training, because I could get hurt just by overuse, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to do just everything. I wanted just to have a very fit body, that anything I would do, I would not get any cramp. So let's say on Monday, I would do an hour of yoga, an hour of running. The next Tuesday, the Tuesday after, I would do an hour of lifting weights and then stretching. And the Wednesday, I would do kayaking and then biking. I would do like 2 hours, 3 hours, and month to month, it would change, right? There's the build up to the event. But in general, I wanted to just have a body very efficient. And that includes what you put in your body, what you eat, what you do. And in the end, listen, I was kayaking 10 to 12 hours a day. That's a lot for a body. It's half of your 24-hour period is being active. So the problem I could have, and I knew it very well, that it could be the joints and the tendons. It's not so much the muscles, because the muscles, if they're very efficient, they'll stay put, and as long as you give the right nutrition for them, it'll be fine. It's just the tendons and the joints. That's where failure could happen. So I made sure that those long hours would give a little pressure every day at a time so that they would get stronger and stronger.
It's part physical, and you clearly had that balance down where you had the help and you had the coaching and you had the optimum nutrition. But let's talk about mentally. You did it in a rowboat, but it was a totally different experience with 3 other people with you. Now, going back and thinking, did you run through that in your mind while you were mentally preparing? What were some of the things that you did to be on top of your game from a mental perspective?
Yeah, it changes everything to be alone. When you're a friend, like when I was a kid, we used to have a forest next to our house, and what we'd do, we'd take his grandma, we'd go around the forest, and we'd look at the owl. Look, there's an owl. Can you hear that sound? We're not scared because you're holding grandma's hand. Well, then we tried to do it on our own. You're so scared to be in the woods, just to listen. Every sound will scare you. Well, this is the same, but exponential. When you're alone on the boat, there's any wave hitting you, you're gonna be like, what's going on? Or something's cracking. There's not a friend telling you it's okay, it's all right. Oh, you're feeling you have got hallucination. That's because you're sleep deprived, or you're too emotional. Somebody else say, okay, just take it easy for the next shift. When you're alone, you have to be self-checking all the time. So that self-awareness is crucial. And I had a mental coach to say, okay, what do I need to do? And like I told you, I'm very much into trying anything. Like anything new, like I'm a beginner for everything. So I started to do Zazen meditation. I started to do cold water soaking, the method of Wim Hof. Then I did hypnosis. I did a lot of yoga. I did just about everything. I had a mental coach trying to give me, instructions. Hey, why don't you try this? Push your fears. Try to push your incomfort zone, and try to do, confinement of the cabin is a problem. Okay, face your fears. How can you do this? The mental side is what make or break such a journey. So I wasn't ready 100%. My first attempt in 2021 ended in me being rescued by the Coast Guard after a week. Then I tried again for 1 year, train even more, try new things until I was ready for June 2022. And I made it after 3 months.
Cyril, you said something so profound. First, I want to give kudos to your grandmother for taking you out into the forest. That's always a beautiful thing. So you stopped me right there. I'm like, oh, that's pretty sweet. But the piece that you had a setback, and in my world, I continue to push this. Setbacks are set up for comebacks. And you did have that moment in Santa Cruz where you did get rescued. And tell me how that played out for you. What happened, and how much damage control did it do mentally to your next? Did you flip it upside down and say, you know what, lesson learned, I got this? What happened?
Well, I was in really bad weather, 35 knots of wind, gusting 40, big waves up to 10 feet. And I got an issue with my what we call a sea anchor. It's pretty much a big parachute you put behind the boat that, enables you to be safe at sea. And that didn't work, failure. So I went side to the waves and I was pounded all day, all night. I was attached. I could not eat, sleep, drink, poop, whatever. I was in my cabin like a little coffin. And I always said, safety first. So when it came to the point of taking a decision with my land support, we said, okay, we're going to call the Coast Guard. It's dangerous. It's going to last for another 4 days. I could really die. So a few hours later, I was landing at SFO. The Coast Guard came with a helicopter. And that's when it hits you. It's like, what just happened? My dream, I'd been working for 3 years, is just over. There's no way. So, then it's actually sitting down, talk to the people you trust, and try to look at what happened. Was I prepared? The conversation I had with this guy called Scott Donaldson, and he crossed the Tasman Sea, amazing guy, 76 days. And he said, Cyril, were you prepared? Yeah, I was prepared. When I had to do this, I did that. And then, and he said, yeah, but you were rescued. So were you prepared? Oh yeah, I was prepared mentally. I didn't feel afraid. Felt great in my little cocoon of a cab. Yeah, but you were rescued. So were you prepared? And then I was like, what? All right, I wasn't prepared. And then he pushed me to that point where I had to admit to myself, yeah, I wasn't prepared. Okay, great. Let's start from now. What can we do so that you get prepared? It's really, a lot of people say, there's no failure, just teachable moments. I'm not afraid of the word failure. Yeah, it was a failure. I didn't make it to Hawaii, but it stays a failure if you don't learn anything from that, right? So then it was a process of looking back and say, how could I prepare better? How could I change? And what, like, I started to have this one sentence that was a filter for every action that I would do from now on: is this that you're going to do going to help you increase the probability of success to reach Hawaii? So I was spending so much time on podcasts, on press release, and social media just to share this. No, this is not going to help me, right? The filter is this going to help you increase the probability of success? Spending more time on the boat? Yes. Training more? Yes. Spending time in the water, being cold and wet? Yes. So then I would filter that. And it was part of the reason why I think I was better prepared on the second try.
I see. That makes me smile, because there's a number of times in my life I think back and I think you can flip the words, but the reality is it's a failure. And lots of people, oh, no, it's not a failure. You learned this and that. I'm like, but the objective didn't happen. And to me, I call that a failure. But the beauty of it is that you came back so much stronger, because you had to recognize the raw, authentic Cyril, who needed to go back in the boat, who needed to get back moving forward in the direction that was calling him, which was, Hawaii, which I love that it's almost so poetic that you had to have that moment, that there might've been something previously in your past that held you back, that moved you forward in that final amazing outcome. So
yeah, it's almost a philosophy, it's like, okay, the ocean will always be there. It's not your time, just prepare even more better. But the thing is, it's reality. The reality hits you and there's nothing to do. Sometimes in our society, we think we know because we have the theory and we think it's the truth. But until you're confronted to that reality, like I could tell you, okay, Sherry, you're going to die. You know that. It's reality. I'm going to die. Everybody's going to die. And we know that by truth, but it's still a theory until you confronted with the rawness of the reality, which is you have a near-death experience. Wow, I can really die. Like this becoming, there's a confront, the reality always catches with you, right? So maybe in that attempt, I was not ready. I thought I was going to be ready. I had all the plans. If this breaks, I have a plan B. If this plan B breaks, I have a plan C for everything, for electricity, for water maker, for food, for sleeping, for being seasick, for all this. But then there's nothing that teaches you better than being on the boat on a storm where you butt in the water.
You actually get all of the difficulties that come when you're really, truly prepared. But, there's always a twist. There's always a turn. And the plot thickens when you try to figure it all out in that moment. And now you're in the boat. So we're taking our listeners on this adventure. We're strapped in. It's that first moment that you're about to set foot into this adventure. First person in the world ever to do something like this. I know you're not probably thinking like that, because all you're thinking about is gear, paddles, conditions, wind, blah, 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 all the important things that people think about. But when you're prepared and you think back over this, going into that first, I'm sitting down and I'm ready to go. Tell me what you felt aside from probably total excitement.
It was relief, because something I had been looking forward to for years. And then the stress builds up the last few weeks. You don't sleep well. You're trying to think, did I think of everything? Like, do I have this backup? Do I have that? Do I need to buy that? And you're not ready. And when is the weather window going to open? And that moment you push off the shore. Yeah, it's kind of scary, because I'm not going to touch land for the next 3 months. And you say goodbye to the loved one, and then you go towards uncertainty and some things you've never done. But in the end, it's me in the ocean, and that's what I wanted, So feels amazing. Now, what I will say is, from that moment on, you start with a full potential, right? Where the boat has a certain potential. I physically, mentally, emotionally have a certain potential. Maybe somebody else who's a better adventurer is going to have a highest potential. Maybe somebody's going to go with a better boat. Maybe the ocean is going to be, harder, easier for somebody else. You start with a potential. And from that moment, the only thing you can do is try to prevent the decrease of the potential to go down. Because let's say I get sick. Okay, potential goes a little bit down. I break an oar or a water maker, potential goes down. And the only thing you can do is try to keep that potential from going too fast, because that would be failure, right? If it happens in the middle of the Pacific. And I can look at it as like what we do in life. You have a potential as a human being. You have a certain physical capacity, mental, emotional, etc. Everybody's got their own potential. And whatever you do to your body, whether you exercise, you eat properly, you sleep well, is going to prevent that potential to go down. And eventually we're going to go down because we're aging. Everybody's aging, right? Everybody has stress. So how do you prevent that potential from going down? By having a life that is stress less, or having the right environment, the right people, the right nature, the right food, etc. So we're all the same. We all start with the same potential, more or less. How do you prevent it from not going down?
Well said. So tell me, since we do have some people out there that I'm sure are thinking, how does one, from a nutrition standpoint, how do you make a journey like that for 90 days and eat effectively so that you can keep your potential from going down? Share with us a little bit about how did that work?
Well, I knew that it was going to be crucial because my first crossing, I lost 20 pounds. So how do you prevent from losing too much muscle mass? How do you prevent from losing your mind? Literally, like you have hallucination, sleep deprivation. So there's three really times. The preparation phase, where I was trying to bulk up, get a lot of muscles, and being so efficient. So I was lucky that I partnered with a company, you might know Standard Process, that I wanted to do 6 months, the maximum potential that I could start, right? So we did blood analysis and said, okay, well, you're not very good in vitamin D, so we'll have a supplement of vitamin D. And usually, you also need a lot of fiber and protein as you work out so much to try to build those muscle mass. You need magnesium, you need, B12, because so I had this analysis that was done. Now, that was the before. The during, I was eating 4,000 calories a day. And it's the same. At night, I had to wake up every hour because there's container ships out there. I need to look at the plotter, make sure I'm not in danger. I had to make sure my boat was okay. If there's storm, I don't sleep very well. So sleep deprivation will make, my immune system go down. And how do I improve my immune system? Okay, there's many products that they had that they said, okay, this is exactly what you need, to keep your immune system so strong that you don't get sick. You're still on top of your game. Like 2:00 in the morning, I got to be on top. I can't be, weak. I need to be strong. So I still lost 20 pounds those 3 months. And then there's this third phase is how do I recuperate all the muscle mass that I've lost? How to make sure my digestive system is efficient to recovery? How to make sure that, sleep comes back to being normal? And they did an amazing job. So on my next adventure, I'm again partnering with them. So happy. Yeah.
Fantastic. Hold that next adventure. We're not there yet. We're still with you somewhere between Hawaii and California. So here we are. You can't sleep very well. What is the scariest thing that actually happened on the adventure for you?
Well, it's the weather. It's the feeling of not being in control. I had the Hurricane Estelle. Was my weather router. I have a professional weather router who contacts me every day. So it gives me the forecast of the next 3 days, the intensity of the wind, the direction of the wind, the created the wind chop. So it creates waves, right? And there's also the swell of the current. So it gives me all that information. And suddenly, it was after 3 weeks, he says, Cyril, there's wind building up, actually up the coast of Mexico. It's coming your way. It's going to be there in 3 days. It's a hurricane. Her name is Estelle. Nice to meet you, Estelle. And you're going to have winds for 25 to 30 knots, and that's going to be pretty much the same conditions that you have faced a year ago when you had to fail. And then that was really hard to get ready for this. There's not much you can do. I was lucky that it was actually downgraded to a tropical storm. So only for 1 day, I could not paddle. I put the sea anchor on. I was attached on my chest and hips, and I just can't do anything. And there's no reason. It's 30 knots of wind. When I paddle, I'm going at 2 miles an hour. So there's nothing I could do, only just to wait. And I was ready mentally. I'd prepared properly to think that my boat would be unsinkable, like a rubber ducky, and I trusted my boat. So that's where the fear is, when you feel like you're not in control. Nature is so strong, and no matter what, I just have to trust my gear.
So clearly the weather is one piece of it, and you're not sleeping, but you're clearly eating pretty good considering what you have to do. I can barely sit for an hour without having to get up and do something. How did you train yourself to sit for so long? And then did you jump? What did you do with your legs? Because at some point it's just, you got to stand up, right? So do you jump out of the boat? Tell me what that looks like on a regular basis, because there's no way I could sit for that long.
Right. So yeah, I didn't walk for 3 months. So a big question was, how do I keep the integrity of my lower limbs?
Mm-hmm.
And if I keep them strong, then the whole health of my whole body would be better. So I actually decided to add a small paddling system where I could use it like an hour a day, 2 hours a day, just to keep the legs going. And that was crucial. That was very, very important. And one of the thoughts was, okay, I have a paddle in my hand, so I can't eat and paddle at the same time. So that means for 1 hour for breakfast, an hour at lunch, an hour at dinner, that's 3 hours where the boat is not moving. If I'm going 2 miles an hour, 3 hours, that means 6 miles that I'm missing. If I have this little pedaling system that I can use, I can eat and keep pedaling it a bit. So I do those 2 miles an hour, and 6 miles times 70 days, it's 420 miles, right?
Wow.
And actually, it was not 70 days like I thought. It was going to be 90 days. I was slower than expected, but I can do 1/5 of my distance just by adding the little pedaling system.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that was really good. And when I arrived in Hawaii, I could actually stand and walk. After 5 minutes, I had to sit down because all the weight of my own body on my hips and knees, would hurt a little bit, but I gained the strength really fast.
Do you think that would be the right time for a chiropractic adjustment?
100%. I did one of them before I left because I had been training so much. I wanted to make sure I was aligned. I didn't feel like I did too much, but I just wanted to make sure everything was in place, and then you do the session and then you're like, what? I'm better. So
I'm so much stronger and healthier. That it's pretty amazing thinking of not standing. And here's, in your mind, you're thinking 70 days, and you just kind of release the fact that, it wasn't where your mindset and goal was. You had to adjust your reality 20 more days. That's a long time. That's almost a month. How did you feel when you started thinking through the details of, how do I do 20 more days? Because you planned for 70. Is that accurate?
Yes. I had calculated the speed of the boat, theory, and then the strength of the current and the wind. So it didn't happen day 70. It was actually much earlier, because if you think about it, I thought it was going to be 70, so I should reach halfway point at 35 days. Well, I should reach halfway point at 50 days, right? So then I'm looking at my food. I've got 70 days, 4,000 calories. I need to start a ration. So I couldn't eat my 4,000 calories a day. I need to eat 2,300. So if I save 1/3 of my daily portion and put 2 of those, ration together, that would make 2/3 of a ration. Then I can extend 15 days. So now I'm going from 70 days to 85, right? That's perfect. So and then I changed my island. Instead of, my plan was going to Honolulu on the island of Oahu. If I go to this other island, the big island, I'm going to shave 100 nautical miles. That means I can get there 5 days earlier. Perfect. But the mental side was, my first crossing, when we reached halfway point, it was exhilarating. It was, yeah, every day now is going to be downhill. Every day is going to be closer to Hawaii. Well, when I was alone, those 50 days, now remember, my first crossing was 39 days completely. Now I was 50 days in, and I had another 50 days in theory. And I was done. And my land support, he said, okay, how do you cross an ocean? It's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And I had eaten half the elephant, but I didn't want to eat one more bite of that elephant. I was like, done. It's like, it was so hard to reach halfway point. Mentally, it was actually very, very hard to think that I had as much hardship for the second half. So the way I did it was mental. It was super interesting. Took me 3-4 days to come up with this, but it come with the reframing. So change your mind on how you see the situation. And that's not physical, it's completely mental. The way I did it is very simple. Instead of saying, I'm going to go to Hawaii, I'm going to take a kayak and go, my goal is to reach Hawaii. I change it for, I'm going to go on a journey and enjoy the journey to get to Hawaii. That seems very similar, but it's actually not, because in the first iteration, the goal is to get to Hawaii. So it's another 50 days to get to the goal. Well, in the second one, my goal is to enjoy the day on my trip to Hawaii. So I'm doing it. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm living it. So all I want to do is enjoy the now. And it's all you learn in Zen meditation, in Buddhism, and all this, like living the now. Like the future doesn't matter because it's not here yet. The past doesn't matter. It's already the past. The present is what, and then it just made sense. I'm going to enjoy the birds. I'm going to enjoy the waves. I'm going to enjoy the fish. And it was just like, there you go. I got it.
It is. It can be just that simple when you start to create a different perspective. And when I think back to that 50 days and how much that meant to you to get to that halfway point, knowing that you still needed a half of the way there to go, you started to redefine your nutrition, redefine your mental capabilities. What did you do physically? Anything different to know that, okay, I have another 50 days, because you technically would have run out of food at 85 days and it took you 91.
Yeah, but so here's what happened. There's just two ways to do it. Either I do 1 more hour a day, right? If I have 50 days, that's 1 more hour a day of pedaling. That means I'm going to do 50 hours more. That's 2 days that I could shave off, right? But what is the risk of doing 1 more hour when I already have my routine of doing 10 hours a day works really well? And if I push more, well, what's going to happen? Maybe I'm going to get hurt. I'd rather not, and let's see how it goes. And I was not eating all my 4,000 calories a day. There was like a little something and I didn't want to eat that day. So I piled it up and I could add another 5 days. So I wasn't too afraid about this. But on top of that, day 46, just before halfway, my water maker broke. And the water maker is this piece of machine that is, using solar panels. I've got batteries, and takes electricity from the batteries and creates water by reverse osmosis, taking the water from the ocean and removing the salt by filter, right? It breaks. So now I have a backup, which is a manual one. So it's like you throw a hose in the water and then you pump, like arm wrestling this little machine.
Oh, no.
And it takes me 2 hours to make the gallon of water that I need every day. So then I'm passing from 10 hours of pedaling to adding 2 hours of making water. That's 12 hours. And considering this, I don't think I want to push my luck and trying to go faster. So the mental is just, you know what? I'll get there when I get there. There's no hurry.
Aha.
I'll get there when I get there.
That's I think a very appropriate moment of recognizing, because the most important thing you need in all of it is water, right? So you didn't freak out. Yeah, the most important thing just broke, but I still have the ability to continue. Were you ever able to fix that issue with the solar panel?
No, the engine was dead. Yeah, I don't know what happened. He overheated or something, and maybe something was stuck in the pump. It just died.
Wow. So, good for you to be over prepared, because if you had leaned on just that one piece, that could have ended it right there for you. That one moment.
Yeah, totally. I would not have died. I had like 3-4 days of water, and I would have just to be rescued, and then the dream was over, because it was 50 days. Look, my boat is in the middle of the ocean. The Coast Guard are going to send not a helicopter, they're going to send a container ship. Say, hey, these guys like calling Mayday. You have to go get him. And the survival at sea makes them go. Everybody takes care of each other over there in the ocean. So, but he would have taken me, and the boat would be drifting in the ocean. And that means all my investment, all the preparation would have been gone, and the dream would have been gone. So I'm glad, this little piece of machine worked.
Didn't it give you this reality too of how fragile you are in this big, vast, beautiful ocean, and that something like that, you start to see that this happened because you were well prepared, and that you took on Mother Nature with a smile. You didn't try to beat her over the head and say, I'm the master of the universe and I can do this. You worked with Mother Nature. Tell me some of the adventures in the ocean, because you clearly had to see lots of birds. Was there any moment where you got scared from the marine life?
Not from the marine life. I think I was really in awe, especially starting the second halfway. Um, I told you I was starting to be a new trip, or I was much more spiritual. I was connected, and every time a bird would come, to me, it was they were coming to check on me, and I would look at nature in a different way, where those birds, like after a month and a half, 2 months, they're there. They're not even going back to land. Like, how well adapted are they? And then same for the tuna, same for the flying fish, same for the birds that are catching the flying fish. I was in awe, like literally all day. People ask me, did you have entertainment, music, podcast, video? I actually didn't need it too much. I would just spend looking at the clouds and looking at the wind, looking at the sun, and just taking.
You were the right person for this adventure, really, because the adventure actually chose you. You didn't really choose the adventure, because you adapted so beautifully to the new environment. And that makes people, especially when you're coming up against obstacles in your life, you have that ability to look at it differently, but you also have the ability to absorb it and appreciate it for what it is that this is the new environment that I'm in. And I think you got one of the biggest tastes of how it used to be, probably for many fishermen way, way back when you'd go out and, you'd spend so much time out there and come back. You didn't have a radio. You didn't have a podcast. You had life, and you had all the beauty that was surrounding you. So your eyes, in a metaphorical and a truly physical way, your eyes were open, and you were so aware of everything, sense of touch, smell, feel, you're listening. Everything was probably acutely tuned in.
Yeah, I feel so lucky about this because, listen, I was 3 months with no email, no calendar, no phone, no social media. My brain was decluttered completely. And then the sense of survival, where I need to take care of my body, take care of hygiene, of my routine, my discipline, and doing this, eating properly, and being aware of where I am and position. And like, I have to be in the moment no matter what. And I feel like I've grown as a person to be able to live this. And it's probably why I want to feel it again at some point.
Okay, now's the time to unveil, because I knew you're holding something back. So if you're comfortable, you don't have to, but you can tease it up, because once you're done an adventure, I'm going to be calling again saying, come on, Cyril, come back. So what's the next step for you?
So the next, I didn't decide right away. When you finish an expedition like that, the first thing would be to rebound. Right. I need to do something else, because there's a little something that is really well known. It's a post-expedition stress syndrome, where you feel like you lift something so strong, you want to live it again. So I wanted to readapt to life before I decided anything. But after 4 months, I think the ocean's calling me, adventure's calling me, the feeling of being out there. So I'm planning next year in December 2024 to do another ocean. I want to do this with the same boat, my kayak, Valentine. I want to do the Atlantic Ocean from east to west. So the plan is to leave from the Canary Islands off of Senegal, Morocco, near Africa, and cross the whole Atlantic from east to west all the way to Barbados, so to the Caribbean. Amazing adventure. I can't wait. I'm already, like, every day I wake up at 4. I need to do this, I do that. I'm already like,
I'm actually holding my breath right now, thinking, holy cow. So in terms of miles, how much more time is that in the boat than going from California to Hawaii?
Well, it's 200 nautical miles longer. So should I do my normal average is 20 to 25 nautical miles, it should take another 10 days. So we're looking at 100 days. But it could be a little bit less, because the fact that I'm leaving from an island to an island means that the trade winds will already be established. I don't have to fight the strong current that is on the continental side of Africa. So all in all, I would estimate this time 90 days.
That's
.com.
exciting.
Yeah.
Solo, say that website again.
Solo kayak theatlantic.com.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, we'll make sure that's in the show notes too. So let's start with one piece of this as we wrap it up today. The audience has been brought to a very exciting adventure with kind of walking through the first moment where you decide this is what I want to do, this is the boat I want to be in, and this is the 91 days plus 9 hours, because 9 hours is the longest 9 hours of your entire life. But now that you've set another goal, it's inspiring, it's invigorating, and we're going to be really carefully watching your preparation, the motivation, and pieces of that. But what are some of the maybe 3 small steps someone who's listening today could get to take that next big adventure for themselves?
All right. Step number 1, listen to that inner fire, that one thing that you really want to do, and that you get inspired. You say, why? No, I want to do this. And you have always postponed this. Listen to that inner fire, because that's going to be the energy to start. Number 2, believe in yourself. And say to yourself, why not me? Yeah, everybody else can do it, but why not me? You want to do a trip around the world? Do it. You want to live overseas, learn Spanish, lose weight, do a triathlon, learn some new skills, do it. That's number 2. Why not me? Why not you? And number 3 is go for it and start today. Start today.
We're delighted that Standard Process was able to walk you through the nutritional aspects, and we're certainly excited that you were able to get an adjustment before you went on this adventure. And if you need so, I can certainly find you a chiropractor in South Africa. No problems. You keep in touch with me, because we've got chiros all over the world to help anyone at any time for any reason, regardless of their adventure. Well, Cyril, it has been an absolute pleasure. This will not be our first time together. I know there are many more to come. So I want to sincerely thank you on behalf of our entire audience. It is adventures like this that keep our reality adjusted. And you are clearly one of those heroes that make exploration so much fun and not give up and put a smile on your face. And a big shout out wherever in the heavens your grandmother is for taking you to the forest so you could feel some of those fears, and your rubber ducky that didn't flip over on you. So awesome to have you on the show today, Cyril. I know we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Cyril, so much for absolutely inspiring our audience. This is about CHIROTHON inspiring others. So being able to educate, elevate, and motivate people to have better lives. And what better way to do that than to promote education and get this around to our Michiganders. So today was an eventful day, and we had some really amazing guests. And I hope that you at home watching this were able to find some nuggets that you could take home or that you could share. But we're not done yet, okay? We started on Friday. We're ending tonight with a goal in mind, and we need each and every one of you to consider what would it mean to give back to chiropractic. So many people love their chiropractor and they donate from their heart. So I'm going to ask you, before the night is over, would you be willing to donate any amount, donating to our cause? Our goal is $50,000, and before you leave tonight, I want to give you a magnificent update. We have raised $13,811. That is amazing, and we're not done yet. Remember, these dollars are being matched by our chairman, Mr. Kent Greenewalt, our CEO of Foot Levelers and the chairman of the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. It's through his generosity that we're going to make our goal happen. So, f4cp.org/MAC. And we can make that goal happen. Now remember, we're going to be back. We have several vignettes tomorrow, and I want you back here. Can you share this link with friends and family? Can you think about what it means to truly be inspired to health? Maybe, like Cyril, conquer a world record. Who knows where you'll go when you're feeling healthy and inspired? Meet us back here tomorrow morning. Let's inspire Michiganders to make their life better through chiropractic care. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Saturday night, and we will see you back here early on Sunday morning.